with a group of people in the Reagan administration who equated political dissent with treason, and who cannot differentiate between emergency procedures, which I think everyone agrees are necessary, and suppressing political dissent. And with North and Poindexter and Casey, you had a group of people who saw Americans who disagree with them as the enemy.
Colonel North, in your work at the NSC, were you not assigned at one time to work on plans for the continuity of government in the event of a major disaster? Mr. Chairman.
I believe that question touches upon a highly sensitive and classified area, so may I request that you not touch upon that, sir.
I was particularly concerned, Mr. Chairman, because I read in Miami papers and several others that there had been a plan developed by that same agency, a contingency plan in the event of emergency that would suspend the American Constitution. And I was deeply concerned about it and wondered if that was the area in which he had worked. I believe that it was,
may I most respectfully request that that matter not be touched upon at this stage. If we wish to get into this, I'm certain arrangements can be made for an executive session.
And tragically, the only member who got close was Jack Brooks, and he was stopped by the chairman.
This is not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system.
How many people are familiar with the King Alfred plan that was changed to Rex 84 under the Reagan administration? King Alfred plan, code name Rex 84. In the event of widespread and continuing and coordinated racial disturbances in the United States, King Alfred, at the discretion of the president, is to be put into action immediately. Participating federal agencies: the National Security Council, Department of Justice, Central Intelligence Agency, Department of Defense, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Department of Interior. Participating state agencies under federal jurisdiction: the National Guard units, state police. Participating local agencies under federal jurisdiction: city police. Now we know that they're trying to spark a race war. So this is what's going to happen once this race war kicks off. National Security Council, even before 1954, when the Supreme Court of the United States of America declared unconstitutional separate educational and recreational facilities, racial unrest and discord have become very nearly a part of the American way of life. But that way of life was repugnant to most Americans. Since 1954, however, that unrest, discord have broken out into widespread violence, which increasingly have placed the peace and stability of the nation in dire jeopardy. This violence has resulted in loss of life, limb, and property, and has cost the taxpayers of this nation billions of dollars. And the end is not yet in sight. This same violence has raised the tremendously grave question as to whether the races can ever live in peace with each other. Each passing month has brought new intelligence that, despite new laws passed to alleviate the condition of the minority still is not satisfied. Demonstrations and rioting have become a part of the familiar scene. Troops has been called out in city after city across the land, and our image as a world leader severely damaged. Our enemies press closer, seeking the advantage, possibly at a time during one of these outbreaks of violence. The minority, meaning the so-called African Americans, has adopted an almost military posture to gain its objectives, which are not clear to most Americans. It is expected, therefore, that when those objectives are denied the minority, racial war must be considered inevitable. When that emergency comes, We must expect the total involvement of all 22 million members of the minority, men, women, and children. For once this project is launched, its goal is to terminate once and for all the minority threat to the whole of the American society and indeed the free world. But war has been declared on the so-called African American already, with all these lynchings across America, and a new one with Kwawan Charles that was lynched and killed just like Emmett Till. Back to the King Alfred plan. Department of Interior. Under King Alfred, the nation has been divided into 10 regions. In case of emergency, minority members will be evacuated from the cities by federalized National Guard units, local and state police, and, if necessary, by units of the regular armed forces, using public and military transportation, and detained in nearby military installations until a further course of action has been decided. Let's look at these regions. 1. Capital Region. 2. Northeast Region. 3. Southeast Region. 4. Great Lakes Region. 5. South Central Region. 6. Deep South Region. 7. Deep South Region 2. 8. Great Plains, Rocky Mountain Region. 9. Southwest Region. 10. West Coast Region. It's funny to see that the Deep South has 2 regions. No attempt will be made to seal off the Canadian and Mexican borders. Department of Justice. Preliminary memo. Federal Bureau of Investigation and Central Intelligence Agency, the FBI and the CIA. There are 12 major minority organizations and all familiar to the 22 million. Dossiers have been compiled on the leaders of the organizations and can be studied in Washington. The material contained in many of the dossiers and our threat to reveal that material has considerably held in check some of the leaders. So of course, some of our so-called leaders has dirt on them. And the minute they want to do something for our nation, they will bring that dirt out. Case in point, Bill Cosby. Leaders who do not have such usable material in their dossiers have been approached to take government posts, mostly as ambassadors and primarily in African countries. The promise of these positions also has materially contributed to a temporary slowdown of minority activities. However, we do not expect these slowdowns to be of long duration because there are always new and dissident elements joining these organizations with the potential power to replace the older leaders. All organizations and their leaders are under constant 24-hour surveillance, just like the COINTELPRO that J. Edgar Hoover put in place. The organizations are the Black Muslims. 2. Student Nonviolent Coordinated Committee. 3. Congress of Racial Equality. 4. Uhuru Movement. 5. Group or Advanced Leadership. 6. Freedom Now Party. 7. United Black Nationalists of America. 8. The New Pan-African Movement. 9. Southern Christian Leadership Conference. 10. The National Urban League. 11. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. 12. Committee on Racial and Religious Progress. Now, they don't have this on there, but you best believe this is number 1 because a lot of our people are waking up now. But they're going to call it the Black Hebrew Israelites. But there's no such thing as the Black Hebrew Israelites. We are called Hebrew Israelites, according to the scriptures. You best believe they're number 1 on this list because this list is old. Note, at the appropriate time to be designated by the president, the leaders of some of these organizations are to be detained only when it is clear that they cannot prevent the emergency. Y'all hear that? At the appropriate time to be designated by the president, the leaders of some of these organizations are to be detained. Working with the local public officials during the first critical hours, all other leaders are to be detained at once. Compiled lists of minority leaders have been readied at the National Data Computer Center. It is necessary to use the minority leaders designated by the president in much the same manner in which we use minority members who are agents with central and federal, and we cannot until there is no alternative. Reveal King Alfred in all its aspects. Minority members of Congress will be unseated at once. This move is not without precedent in American history. So all your minority leaders that's in Congress will be unseated and arrested and transported to your nearest concentration camp. Department of Defense. This memo is being submitted in lieu of a full report from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That report is now in preparation. There will be many cities where the minority will be able to put into the street a superior number of people with a desperate and dangerous will. These are your chocolate cities like Chicago, D.C., New York. He will be a formidable enemy, for he is bound in the continent by heritage and knows that political asylum will not be available to him in other countries. The greatest concentration of the minority is in the Deep South, the Eastern Seaboard, the Great Lakes region, and the West Coast. While the national population exceeds that of the minority by more than 10 times, we must realistically take into account the following. 1. An estimated 40 to 50% of white population will not, for various reasons, engage the minority during an emergency. 2. American armed forces are spread around the world. A breakout of war abroad means fewer troops at home to handle the emergency. 3. Local law enforcement officials must contain the emergency until help arrives, though it may mean fighting a superior force. New York City, for example, has a 25,000-man police force, but there are about 1 million minority members in the city. Now, we know this changed. This was revised in 1984, but we know it's been revised again. We are confident that the minority would hold any city it took for only a few hours. The lack of weapons, facilities, logistics, all put the minority at a final disadvantage. We know that this is going to be a disadvantage for us. This is why we have to call on our spiritual father, so our spiritual powers could come upon us. You're not going to win with weapons. That's what we have to understand, because they have plans for us. Since the Korean War, this department has shifted minority members of the armed forces to areas where combat is most likely to occur, with the aim of eliminating through combat as many combat-trained military servicemen as possible. Today, the ratio of minority member combat deaths in Vietnam, where they are serving as advisors, is twice as high as the minority population ratio in the rest of America. Below is the timetable for King Alfred, as tentatively suggested by the JCS, who recommended that the operation be made over a period of 8 hours. 8 hours? 1. Local police and minority leaders in action to head off the emergency. 2. Countdown to 8 hours begins at the moment the president determines the emergency to be A. National, B. Coordinated, of long duration, the 8th hour. 3. County police join local police in the 7th hour. 4. State police join county and local police in the 6th hour. 5. Federal marshals join state, county, and local forces in the 5th hour. 6. National Guards, federalized, held in readiness in the 4th hour. 7. Regular armed forces alerted, take up positions, minority troops divided and detained, along with all white sympathizers under guard in the 3rd hour. So there will be other nations sympathizing for what's about to take place against the so-called African American, which are the chosen people of Yahweh. We have some of our people joining these forces, whether it's on a police force or a military force. But as you see here, it states minority troops divided and detained. They're going to take your weapons and throw you in with us and detain you. 8, all minority leaders, national and local, detained. All you so-called leaders will be detained in the second hour. 9, President addresses minority on radio television, gives it 1 hour to end the emergency, first hour. So your president will come on all your airwaves and give you 1 last hour to give yourselves up to be detained. 10, all units under regional commands into the emergency. That will be in the 0 hour. Survey shows that during a 6-year period, production created 9 million objects, or 1.5 million each year. Production could not dispose of the containers, which proved a bottleneck. Now, what containers are they talking about? Do you guys remember the plastic coffins sitting on the side of a highway in Georgia that could fit 3 bodies in each plastic coffin? So it states again, production could not dispose of the containers, which proved a bottleneck. However, that was almost 20 years ago. We suggest that vaporization techniques be employed to overcome the production problems inherent in King Alfred. Did y'all hear that? They want to vaporize us. Once we in these camps, or if they do kill us, they want to vaporize us because there's so many of us. It states, the Zero Committee report is referring to the problems that occurred in Nazi Germany when the furnaces were not hot enough to burn the bodies that Hitler had killed. The bodies clogged up the furnaces, thereby causing a problem that the above committee recommends avoiding by building high-volume, nuclear-powered incinerators that burn 5,000 degrees. They want to vaporize us. It should be noted that steel melts at approximately 2,700 degrees. So they want to make sure that everything is gone and vaporized. So we have to understand that we have enemies out here that's looking to kill. Why are they coming for us? What did we do? You have to understand the media, movies, radios, ads, etc. has been painting a picture to the rest of the world on how we are uncivilized and a cancer to society. Remember, we are called predators and savages, code words for niggas in their eyes. With all these protests around the countries, and your Black Lives Matter, which is in reality a LGBTQ movement, they are showing people vandalizing their communities, breaking in stores, stealing clothes. But the ones that's initiating these things are the other nations that's coming into our communities, breaking and tearing things up. But the media would never show that. They only showing the aftermath. They don't show the initiators.
Hey, don't do that. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. Please. I want you to know this is not. Don't police people's way of expressing themselves. This is not a black woman who's putting Black Lives Matter. I just want you to know that when. Right, but y'all doing that for us, and we ain't asked you to do that. Listen, don't spray stuff out here when they gonna blame black people for this, and black people didn't do it. There's some black person, but they want you to. If we wanted you to do it, we would have asked. They not gonna show y'all faces when they see that on their children. They gonna blame that on us. Y'all are part of the problem. So don't spray it.
So this is a picture being painted around the world. So why not start our vaccination trials with them first? But ultimately, this is the real reason.
So there's a second thing in that black box. An unrelenting stream of immigration. Non-stop. Non-stop. Folks like me who were Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America from then and on will be white European stock.
Let's go to a couple questions that we've actually received since we started the webcast. The first is on population growth, and the question is, one of our most pressing issues is population growth. How do you expect this to be addressed?
Well, the population growth issue at the global level is not that daunting. That is, the population percentage-wise is growing slower today than in the past, and so it will actually peak out. The problem is that the population is growing the fastest where people are less able to deal with it. So it's in the very poorest places. That you're going to have a tripling in population by 2050. And so their ability to feed, educate, provide jobs, stability, protect the environment in those locations mean they're faced with an almost impossible problem. Northern Nigeria, Yemen, Chad. And so what we need to do is take this aid generosity and this innovation and go into those places, offer the women better tools where they want to space birthing or have a smaller family size, and improve health, because it's amazingly, as children survive, parents feel like they'll have enough kids to support them in their old age, and so they choose to have less children. Niger right now, it's still 7 children per family, whereas in the richer countries, you're often at a stable point of which is 2.1 or even less. And so it's really an acute problem in a certain number of places, and we've got to make sure that we help out with the tools now so that they don't have an impossible situation later.
Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12. There is a way which seems right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death.
The Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine trial is one of 11 in phase 3 right now, with hopes of producing a vaccine before the end of the year. 30,000 volunteers are participating, and Ashley Neely is one of them. She's joining us this morning from Atlanta, Georgia. Nice to see you again, Ashley.
Hi, nice to see you again, too.
Well, you have now received, as of now, 2 doses of the vaccine, one in August, one in September. Tell us about side effects you might have experienced.
Yeah, so I did have some side effects after my first dose. I actually woke up the next morning and I felt really fatigued, more tired than normal. I had body aches, I was sweating, and I had a loss of appetite, too.
Were you nervous when or scared even when you started to experience the side effects?
No, I actually wasn't, because they give you good documentation before. And so they listed all the possible side effects you could have if you had actually got the vaccine. And they also said that you probably wouldn't have any side effects if you had the placebo. So I was expecting to have some side effects.
People watching from home might be wondering, why would anyone willingly put themselves potentially to be receiving a virus so that we can find a vaccine in the midst of a pandemic? Why did you enter the trial?
Yeah, so I entered the trial for 2 main reasons. One, Dr. Fauci had said that there cannot be a vaccine produced without African Americans and minorities participating in the trial. There cannot be a vaccine produced without African Americans and minorities participating in the trial. There cannot be a vaccine produced without African Americans and minorities participating in the trial. So I figured I could help make a difference and sign up to make that work. And of course, I'm like everyone else. I really want this pandemic to end. So any way I can help lend myself to making this go away, I want to do that.
Are you afraid of becoming sick with COVID-19?
I'm not as afraid anymore. Of course, this is a blinded study, so they can't tell you if you have the vaccine or the placebo. But I'm really hopeful that I had the vaccine because of my side effects. So I'm still taking all the precautions. I'm still wearing a mask and washing my hands because you're just not too sure. But I'm hopeful that it's working as everyone hopes it does, and that we won't get COVID from the vaccine.
Now, this vaccine trial doesn't end when they find a vaccine. You were actually enrolled in this for 2 years. So when you were on our show a couple of weeks ago, you're part of a young voter panel. You said then you were participating because of a mistrust within the black community towards clinical trials. What's your experience been like so far?
Yeah, so that mistrust is still really real. I talk to a lot of people who don't understand why I would put myself at risk and go through something like that because of the bad history we've had with medicine, the Tuskegee Project, Henrietta Lacks. And I don't think that we can have good representation in science unless we are stepping up to the plate. And I also think there have been some advances made in science, but of course, we still have a long way to go to make sure people of color are treated fairly.
Ashley, I'm going to ask you just some basic questions because I'm so curious. How does it work? Like, so do you go in? What does the room look like? How long are you there? Where do they do the injection? All of those things.
Yeah, so it's actually like it's a long process. So the first day that you go, you expect to be there around 3 to 4 hours, and they take your normal vital signs such as your height and weight, your temperature, of course. They ask you what medications you're on, and then you kind of go through a series of checks from there. If you are a woman like me, you have to make sure you have a pregnancy test because you're not allowed to get pregnant during a study. I tell everyone the worst part of this whole trial was actually giving the COVID test because that's when they shove it up your nose, and that's probably the most painful experience I've had. Yeah, they also draw your blood and then they give you the shot. I could barely feel the shot. And then to make sure that you're okay, they make you wait for about 30 minutes after receiving the injection so that you don't have, to confirm that you don't have a reaction to it.
Ashley,
2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 3 and 4. But if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost, in whom the God of this world has blinded the minds of them which believe not. Who is the God of this world? The God of this world is Satan, the devil. Verse 4 again, in whom the God of this world has blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, Christ is the image of the Father, Yahweh, should shine unto them.
And right now, white people are really frightened. If you don't understand the destruction of Planned Parenthood offices, and you don't understand the wall that we're going to build on the southern border of the United States, you haven't read the book The Birth Dearth by Ben Wattenberg. Ben Wattenberg was a brilliant Jewish man who was a member of the American Enterprise Institute, and he wrote a book, the first paragraph of which says, the main problem confronting the United States today is there aren't enough white babies being born in this country. He was an advisor to presidents of the United States. He wrote the book in 1987. He says if we don't change this and change it rapidly, white people will lose their numerical majority in this country, and this will no longer be a white man's land. Now, I'm not misrepresenting this. I'm telling you exactly, almost exactly what he says. He says there are 3 things we can do to solve this. Number 1, we could pay women to have babies, as they have been doing in Western European nations for years. Then he says, and these are his words, not mine, unfortunately, we would have to pay women of all colors to have babies, so we don't want to do that. He says the second thing we could do is increase the number of legal immigrants that are allowed into this country every year. Then once again he says, unfortunately, the vast majority of those wanting to come to this country today are people of color, so we don't want to do that. The third thing he says, and white women had better pay attention to this, 60% of the fetuses that are aborted every year are white. If we could keep that 60% alive, that would solve our birth dearth. Does that sound like racism to you?
Can you talk a little bit about the trauma associated with?
The trauma associated with it?
Yeah.
One of the main traumas is it tells white people that they are superior because of the lack of melanin in their skin. Living a lie, finding out the truth, is traumatic. Finding out now, recently, that within 30 years, white people will be in the numerical minority in this country is going to be traumatic. White people are scared to death right now, particularly white males. They're scared to death that they are going to lose their power in the future. And they are. But if you want to get ready for the future, if you want to be treated well in the future, treat others well in the present. What we do in the present constructs the future. We called the Japanese, and you'll pardon me, but this is what we called them, slant-eyed little yellow We didn't say that about the Germans. After the war, we rebuilt Germany and Japan. And we get along beautifully with the Japanese. That was in 1945 that we finally won that war. How many years ago was that? Figure that out quickly.
I'm not a math person, but...
You're not a math person, but you know it wasn't that far.
Right.
And it didn't take 50 years for us to have peace with the Japanese and the Germans, even though we dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan. The Japanese hadn't killed 10 million people. Nowhere near that. We didn't drop any bombs on Germany. any atomic bombs on Germany. They were a different kind of people. We couldn't afford to do that. We killed how many Japanese people with 2 atomic bombs? And they forgave us. You want to talk about forgiveness? You want to talk about changing this thing? I cannot understand how Japanese people can stand the sight of any of us, and yet they do. I cannot understand why black people who have been subjected to the ugliness that they've been subjected to in this country can get up every morning and go to work among us and not be absolutely furious.
Look at the games they're playing. Why are there 6 different vaccines? Are some vaccines for certain people? Once the majority of Yah's chosen people take the vaccines, because most will out of fear, then you will really be turned into a predator or savage, because a demon has inhabited your body. You will become the walking dead and controlled and a threat to society. Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 1 through 11. The word that came to Jeremiah from Yahweh, saying, Thus speaks Yahweh Elohim of Israel, saying, Write you all the words that I have spoken unto you in a book. For lo, the days come, says Yahweh, that I will bring again the captivity of my people, Israel and Judah. So Israel and Judah is the Most High's people, and combined together represents the 12 tribes of Israel. And I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. This is the land of Israel. Verse 4, and these are the words that Yahweh spake concerning Israel and concerning Judah. For thus says Yahweh, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. Ask you now, and see whether a man does travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble. But he shall be saved out of it. For it shall come to pass in that day, says Yahweh of hosts, that I will break his yoke from off your neck. What is his yoke from off our necks? Remember, we have been scattered to the 4 corners of the world, and we have been held bondage under captivity to serve these other nations. So it state again, verse 8, for it shall come to pass in that day, says Yahweh of hosts, that I will break his yoke from off your neck and will burst your bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him, but they shall serve Yahweh, their Elohim, and David, their king, whom I will raise up unto them. Therefore, fear you not, O my servant Jacob, says Yahweh, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save you from afar, and your seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return, and shall be in rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. For I am with you, says Yahweh, to save you, though I will make a full end of all nations whither I have scattered you. Yet will I not make a full end of you, but I will correct you in measure, and will not leave you altogether unpunished. Genesis chapter 3, verse 14 through 16. And Yahweh Elohim said unto the serpent, because you hast done this, you are cursed above all cattle. What did the serpent do? He tricked and persuaded Eve into listening to him. And what did she listen to? Lies. So for that reason, it states, you are cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field. Upon your belly shall you go, and dust shall you eat all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. So this serpent, which is Satan, has seed. And the woman, which represents Israel in righteousness, has seed as well. So it states again, verse 15, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. Who is Satan's seed? Satan uses these nations to come against the seed of Israel, which is the woman's seed. and it shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Verse 16, unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In sorrow shall you bring forth children. Even though this is dealing with Eve, this also represents the nation of Israel, because Israel is the woman. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. Why will he multiply our sorrow and conception? Because we were disobedient. We broke the covenant. We didn't want to follow the law, statutes, and commandments. We wanted to follow these other nations. Therefore, we had to serve these other nations. In sorrow shall you bring forth children. What does that represent? When we bring forth children, they will go into captivity. And your desire shall be to your husband, and he shall rule over you. Who is the nation of Israel married to? We are married to the Father's Son, Yahushua. He is our husband. He rules over the nation of Israel. Our desire is to Yahushua, which gave us the law, statutes, and commandments. And we wrote a vow to him that we didn't keep, which is why we ended up in captivity. So let's read verse 16 again. Unto the woman he said, which is Israel, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In sorrow shall you bring forth children, and your desire shall be to your husband, and he shall rule over you. Revelation chapter 12, verse 12 through 17. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knows that he has but a short time. Yeah, they're about to speed things up now. Verse 13. And when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. The woman represents Israel. It stated, which brought forth the man-child. What man-child? The Son of God, Yahushua, which came from the tribe of Judah, one of the 12 tribes of Israel. Verse 14. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time, and times, and a half a time, from the face of the serpent. So the woman, which represents Israel, once again, will be nourished in the wilderness for 3.5 years. Verse 15. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. So what does this flood represent? Revelation chapter 17, verse 15. And he said unto me, the waters which you saw it, where the horse sits, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. So the flood represents these nations. And it states, and the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman. So these nations are going to come after the children of Israel, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. So the earth is going to help us and swallow up these nations that come against us. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of Yahweh, and had the testimony of Yahushua HaMashiach. I want to give all praises to the Most High Allah, Yahweh Bahashem HaMashiach Yahushai.